Women only dress for attention. Women only dress provocatively for men. Do you know how much more provocatively I would dress if men didn't exist? And I ain't even get.
Welcome to The Wall. In today's video, we'll see several single and divorced women sharing their stories of how they ended up single, explaining why they're bothered by the question, "Why are you single?" Before we begin, we want to thank you for being here. Your support means a lot to us. If you enjoy what you see, we invite you to subscribe to the channel and hit the like button. We'd also love to hear your experiences in the comments. Your participation helps us grow and reach more people. Thank you for being part of our project. Let's get started.
Let's talk about feeling lonely in your marriage. I think that this is something that has been swept under the rug for a very long time, and most women don't feel comfortable talking about it. I got divorced 3 years ago. Before that, I did feel extremely lonely in my marriage, and I didn't talk to anyone about it. I felt ashamed and like it was my fault and that I had failed, and it was all internally something I was dealing with. I felt like I was supposed to support my partner and never say anything bad about him. So if I talked to my friends about how I was feeling, it was not being a supportive wife. So all these things that aren't true. As women, we deserve to be supported and loved and taken care of, no matter what stage you're in, no matter how old your kids are. So just know that you deserve that. You deserve to be treated well and loved and supported, and that being lonely in your marriage is not okay. Work on it if you want to work on it. Leave if you want to leave, but know that you need to talk to people and that you will get through this one way or another.
If you look at this society, women are given all the power. If she wants to leave, she can, no matter how much destruction is left in her wake. She just follows that emotion and forgets everything else. That's why I say women are loyal to their emotions. But something I've observed is that women always say men haven't matured as quickly as they have. The truth is, it's not like that. There's something I call the infatuation stage. This is the first level of a relationship when you're walking on eggshells to not upset your partner. Everything is beautiful and rosy. Usually, the man surpasses this stage, moves on to commitment and the responsibility of carrying a family. Women find it hard to move past the initial stages of a relationship because, as I said, they're addicted to this emotion and attention. It's hard for them to mature and understand that they won't receive as much attention anymore, and they have to pursue their own goals and family to be happy. That's why they say as a woman, "I deserve." It's like, "Give me all this attention you gave me in the courtship." That's why she divorces, seeking to relive her single life when she was 20, being invited to all kinds of places, having many suitors. Everything was excitement and fun, seeking the initial stages of a relationship. But the wall is a cruel karma, showing her that her prime has passed, that men no longer see her the same after a divorce, that she has children, and she becomes a single mother. She doesn't have the financial support of her husband. What she thought was rosy turns completely blue with tears of suffering. The wall doesn't forgive, brothers.
Men want attention and will do anything to get it, just like a child.
Let's correct that statement, okay? Some people will do anything for attention and do anything to get it.
They will be good to get attention and they will be bad to get attention.
It's almost like that's part of human behavior.
Stop answering to men when they make childish or pandering or accusatory statements.
Does one mean like this one?
Responding to someone who has interrupted a conversation that they aren't even invited to is like saying it's okay that they're there.
Well, that's nice, but I'm definitely interrupting this conversation.
Ignore, delete, block, whatever you have to do to not trigger a cortisol or endocrine or any kind of response in your body. It's about you.
Now there's a radical change in priorities. Everything is about the individual and their feelings.
The less that you acknowledge that it's happening, the more that it becomes background noise and the more that it literally just doesn't even exist anymore.
But yet, here's a post about it.
But for women to recenter and heal and decenter men and not consider them to be a part of blah, 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 to not consider them, they aren't invited to this piece of ourselves that is working on ourselves, that is working on us being the center.
Yet, ironically, one is still centering men in this conversation.
And no amount of good behavior or bad behavior or tantrum throwing or gesturing is going to get precedence over me and my well-being. Once I'm centered in that space, I'm willing and able to listen to anybody.
Just a thought here, but perhaps the best way to get others to listen to what one actually has to say would not be to start out generalizing a group of people just for the sake of grabbing their attention. And then perhaps one's words might actually carry more weight.
She accuses men of seeking attention, yet here she is, over 50 years old, making TikTok videos, talking about men. What irony, brothers. Ma'am, please sit down. A woman should be taking care of grandchildren or go play with her cat because she's on the wall, and the wall doesn't forgive. Women always want to grab a man's attention by any means necessary. They need it. They crave it. No matter their age, they always want men to notice them. So when they can't grab a man's attention anymore, they start making videos to criticize them. It's the law of the mirror. They reflect their own deficiencies. This woman could talk about a good marriage, but since she doesn't have one, she prefers to tell women to ignore men, not to give them attention. In short, she wants to spread her misery. That's why I told you, the wall doesn't forgive.
My marriage failed in my 20s, and I want to give y'all some advice if you've never been married before. My marriage failed for a lot of reasons, but I think this is my biggest downfall. I never thought through what kind of husband I wanted. Which probably sounds dumb, but I didn't think it through, and now that I'm divorced, I have a list of the traits I want my future husband to have. I spelled it all out because I'm not settling. I'm gonna share with y'all what I wrote so that you can go make your own list. Because even if you got a great boyfriend, you need to think these things through. I was dating my ex for 3 years before we got married. I never made a list. I loved him, and that was enough for me. Stupid. You need a list. This list isn't what you want them to look like or anything like that. It's the traits you want them to have, like what type of person you want them to be. I literally wrote out things I want in a husband. I never shared this before because I didn't want men to form themselves to what I want, but I have a boyfriend that's made me add to the list now, so it's okay if I share it. Don't be sharing your list with these men though. All right, things I want in a husband. Loves the outdoors, cuddles in the morning, good hygiene, warm, happy personality, no mental health problems or correctly medicated, surprises me / does cute things, plans dates, bachelor's degree or higher, which my boyfriend doesn't have that, but he has a great career, so that one was kind of superficial anyways. Good job, nice vehicle, that one was superficial too, and my boyfriend's vehicle is a junker, but it made me appreciate my car now. Anyways, manly man, spiritual leader, lives an active, healthy life, can do projects, very sexual, puts me in my place. I got that one underlined too. Never calls me mean words, likes to dance, good with money, enjoys creating social media content with me, motivates me to be my best self. If you don't have a list, go make yourself one. And if you're on any sort of self-discovery journey, I 10 out of 10 recommend journaling. I bought this at the beginning of my journey. I was 230 pounds. And I wrote in here, I am here to rediscover myself. This was my best friend throughout my weight loss journey. I've even gotten angry before and ripped pages out of it, but I put them back for, the story.
Your biggest downfall was reaching 230 pounds and making your husband want to leave you. Don't have a wish list like you're Santa Claus. It's not like you're going to Walmart for groceries. Because, as I said, they can wish for a man with a good job, a nice car, who's affectionate, who only pays attention to them, who makes money with a bachelor's degree or higher, in other words, a perfect man. Because this seems more like a full-time job to get involved with a single mother and divorcee. Wonderful, every man's dream. Here's the irony of women. They can make a list of everything they want their man to have, then expect him to meet a series of requirements to be with her. But if a man sets standards, they get angry. Imagine this man saying he has a list, and she responds that she has one too. On his list, the first thing might be not overweight. This man would be labeled misogynistic, fatphobic, and all the purple-haired collective would come after him to crucify him. Because how is it possible not to want a woman who is overweight, as was the case with this woman's ex? She talks about how her life improved after leaving a disastrous marriage when she weighed 230 pounds, didn't work, and spent her time complaining. What sane man would be happy in that situation? But of course, she leaves her husband, now loses weight, typical of modern women only getting in shape to snag a beta provider for a second marriage.
It's funny because it's true. Oh, honey, if only I had an easy answer for this one. Honestly, that's another misguided phrase people employ that also drives me crazy. Why are you still single? Unless it's asked facetiously, like, how are you still single? You're fucking awesome. But when people ask as if it's a problem they're trying to get to the root of, I can't stand it. And I don't know if you, like me, have done some self-reflection over the years and have tried to come up with an earnest answer. Because the truth is, I probably didn't put myself out there as much as I should have throughout most of my 20s. I had a lot of insecurities I let hold me back, and I was much more passive about connections coming to me rather than seeking them. But then again, I have friends my age who were aggressively dating during this time, and they're also still single. And I have never once looked at these women and thought, well, you're single because there must be something wrong with you. Are there things they could stand to work on or improve within themselves? Absolutely, but that's not exclusive to single people. We're all learning and growing. It doesn't mean we're not worthy of finding a partner to do that alongside. No matter what you do or don't do, there is not one single strategy on this earth that is going to make a suitable partner just appear. Anyone who tells you otherwise is selling something. And that's not to say what dating coaches are selling isn't always legit, because some of them certainly do have some helpful insights and advice, but none of them are going to pull your future husband out of their back pocket. Personally, I can't stand when people refer to dating as a numbers game, meaning the more people you go out with, the more likely you are to find someone. No. For me, quality trumps quantity. Saying yes to a bunch of mediocre dates when I know before going in that they're not the one is not helpful to me. And that's not to say I don't give men I'm doubtful about a chance, because believe me, I do. But I also don't want to waste anyone's time, mine or theirs. Yes, the more you put yourself out there and get to know other human beings, the more likely it is you'll find someone. But that doesn't mean you have to go on a date with everyone. There are other ways to meet people. Hone your hobbies. And let's remember, just because someone has found someone else doesn't mean it will last. People break up and get divorced all the time. People who meet their partner in their late teens or early 20s and are together for 7, 8, 9 years, sometimes they outgrow each other and the relationship doesn't last. Having someone at present isn't a guarantee for the future, even if you both commit to it. And while I'd like to believe there's a lid for every pot, some lids are just harder to come by. Some pots are more basic. They're easy to pair with any lid. Doesn't mean it's the lid for you or that you have to settle for a lid that's good enough. And it doesn't mean there's anything inherently wrong with the pot or that it can't make a damn good soup. You just have to search a little harder if you want to find its counterpart. I probably overextended this metaphor, but I'm not mad about it. Point is, love and relationships come easier to some than they do to others, but it doesn't mean you're unworthy of receiving any of it.
I'll tell you why you're still single. It's because of that stupid idea that something better will always come along. Most women, if not all, have suitors, men who would be very willing to have a relationship because there are plenty of single men out there. But they still want a winner because none of them want to be the woman of the process. What do I mean by this? In the past, a woman would date an average man, and they would both build together, coming from the bottom and adjusting over time. Nowadays, they don't want to be the woman of the process. They want to be the woman who finds a man, as we saw with the other girl, who's well employed, has a good job, a nice car, a career or business, earns more than 6 figures, and in some cases is a 6-foot-tall man. Do you really know how many men can meet such standards? A minority. That's why they're annoyed when asked, and when someone wants to keep investigating because they're attractive women and because there are many single men, yet they can't seem to find one. They'll always say, I have to work on myself. I'm the one holding myself back, not you. You should just lower your standards, bet on a man's potential, because they're hitting the wall, and the wall doesn't forgive.
Say this, and I am going to pin this to my profile. When I say that I am a single woman and I am happy, this does not mean that I don't like relationships, that I hate relationships, that I don't see the benefit in relationships, or that I never want a relationship. It just means that I am single and I am happy, and I am not going to place everything on finding a partner. That is it. That is all it means. How is it so embedded in your brains? You have brain rot from the association that single women must always be miserable in the incessant pursuit of a relationship to find worth and value and meaning in this world. That when a single woman says she's happy, you immediately take that as some sort of reflection of what she believes about relationships. Single women, single people can be single and be happy and still leave room for someone incredible to come into our lives that could bring an incredibly enriching experience. That is more than possible. And my frustration, my fire around this comes from the fact that when I dare say that I'm happy, when I'm just out here thriving, living my life, creating, figuring it out, trying to figure out what the hell is going on in this world, that is taken as some mission statement about what I think about relationships. Are you mad? Are you actually mad? Because there's no correlation between the two at all. Embracing your life for what it has to offer you today is the number one way to just be happy instead of living in constant want. I do not promote being in a relationship as better or being single as better. I promote the idea that you choose for you what is best and I will choose for me what is best. And then we respect the differences between us on our own individual journeys. Is that so hard to grasp? And as much fun as it is to talk like this, what I want to say is that loving, healthy, supportive, mutual relationships, 10 out of 10, back that horse, ride it all the way into the sunset, 100%. But also know that your life has so much to offer, whether you are in a relationship or out of a relationship, whether you have that or never find it at all, you have so much to discover.
This means she's as lonely as the sun at noon on a cloudless day. When you hear a woman shouting from the rooftops that she's single and happy, just pay attention to the keyword, single. She's announcing herself, hoping for suitors, because someone who's genuinely happy doesn't need to proclaim it. People just notice. In life, there are two types of people. Those who have a partner and those who haven't found the right deal in the supermarket of love yet. This woman falls into the second category, lost in her search, but not finding. It annoys her when people ask if she's single, and she'll say she's happy being single. But this woman had a relationship at 25 or older, ended it, and now she's in her 30s, hitting the wall. And since she's hitting the wall, she has to change the modern women's discourse to cover her loneliness. I'm happily single, but it's been several years now, and that happiness doesn't seem to end, or no one sticks around. But as she says, she still has much to discover. Let's hope she doesn't realize too late that she's hit the wall, because the wall doesn't forgive.
See, the next time someone says not all men, ask them this. If a bee was flying towards their face, would they duck or would they say, not all bees sting. Maybe I should give this one a chance.
Welcome to The Wall. In today's video, we'll talk about a woman complaining about having to work, as well as the reasons why a woman got divorced. Another woman expresses that if she marries a man, she doesn't want to take his last name or have their children take his last name. Before we begin, we want to thank you for being here. Your support means a lot to us. If you like what you see, we invite you to subscribe to the channel and give us a thumbs up. We'd also love to hear about your experiences in the comments. Your participation helps us grow and reach more people. Thank you for being part of our project. Let's get started.
Women are not meant to work 9-to-5 jobs.
Well, this should be interesting.
I said this before and I'll say it again. We shouldn't have to work 9-to-5 jobs.
What should we, women, be doing with our time?
Women are meant to go to Pilates class, tan by a pool, read a good book, take care of the children, make good food, and be provided for by a man.
It sounds like one thinks that only the men should have to work. I mean, how far back in time do we want to go? Does one still want the ability to be able to vote?
There's no way a woman can be in her feminine energy if she's sitting on a 9-to-5 job or she's unhappy.
Oh, good. That feminine energy thing. Again.
First part is there's women out there that are having to fill that masculine role in the office, getting things done.
Working is masculine now, and so apparently is getting things done. Noted.
Because they have to be. They're covering bills. They're paying for half of dinner when a man should be paying for the tab every time.
I guess some women don't really want to be independent women, do they?
Did we as a society decide that women should go to a 9-to-5 job, feel some gratification, instead of staying at home with the kids?
It never ceases to amaze me how many individuals actually seem to have entirely skipped history class of how hard so many women and men had to work just so that women could be seen as equals in society.
If a woman wants to work part-time so she can spend more time with her kids at home, she should be able to do that. And don't get me wrong, if you want to work a 9-to-5 job, you go do that. But I'm just saying, women shouldn't have to.
Well then, in the spirit of equality, I guess that means that men shouldn't have to work either. But let's see how well that'll go for society when everybody is so entitled that they don't think that they have to work.
This confirms that what women like is to be supported. Of course, many of these women don't want a traditional life. They want a sponsor. Listen to her saying, go to Pilates, That's my feminine energy. Let a man pay my bills. Of course. And what do you offer this man? That's why the soft guy movement drizzles. It will become increasingly popular among men because they don't see themselves as a wallet or ATM. You fought for equality. You complained about men's protection. You asked for more rights to step out of your husband's shadow. Well, endure the pressure of having to work like every man to make a living. It's that the modern woman doesn't understand that being a man is going through life in hard mode. A man is not unconditionally loved. A man is only worth what he can offer. This is what society hasn't always said like this. So, welcome to the equality you wanted, where everyone has to work to support themselves. Drizzle.
I can remember when I told my ex-husband I wanted a divorce. It was December 2019, and he was completely shocked, completely caught off guard, like dumbfounded, devastated, everything else. But the month before that, November of 2019, I remember very clearly having yet another talk with him about how unhappy I was. But this particular conversation, he was in his man cave room playing video games, which was like his favorite activity. And I go walking in and I tell him, like, I really want to talk about our marriage. Like, I'm not happy. It feels like we're roommates at this point and I don't really have a partner, blah, blah, blah. This man was wearing his headphones because he was playing with a friend and they like talked to each other. He didn't even take his headphones off. He just pulled it off his right ear. This is almost 4 years ago now. I can still remember he pulled it off his right ear and he didn't pause the game or stop playing. He continued to play a video game while his wife was standing in front of him, telling him how unhappy she was in the marriage. And I remember when he said to me something about like marriage being forever and whatever, and I said to him, well, maybe some marriages aren't meant to last. And he got so mad at me for saying that, but he didn't stop playing video games to have the conversation with me. And if that doesn't perfectly sum up why I divorced this man, then I don't know what does. And I feel like this is a very common trend. I hear about this type of stuff a lot, where the wife had expressed her concerns for months or even years, and then when she finally says, all right, I've done everything I could do, I want a divorce, then the husband's like, what do you mean? What's happening? I love you. Please don't leave me. Please don't take my kids from me. It's like, bitch, you should have put in effort. You had the opportunity. We give you so many opportunities to do the right thing. You chose not to. This is now the repercussions of your actions. Am I wrong?
The woman is envious of the man's happiness because out of the 24 hours in a day, the best time to talk about the relationship is when the man starts playing video games. Because you didn't want to talk about the relationship, you just wanted to take away his individual moment where he's having fun so he'd pay attention to you. Many women do this. When a man watches a sports game, immediately the woman comes to talk about problems, because she wants to snatch those little moments of personal enjoyment from you just to fill you with complaints. You could say it when you're at the dinner table, when you're in the room together, or tell him when you have a moment that you need to talk about something important, not when the man is relaxing and trying to unwind, then you want to mess with the relationship and your problems. There's a saying that goes, pick your battles. If you're smart, you'd pick a moment when you're both relaxed together to calmly explain that you want changes in the relationship, or that you're not happy for X or Y reason. They want to keep things to themselves, and only when they want to leave the relationship, that's when they come to unload their complaints, because they never think, this man has family debts to pay, this man is stressed from work, he might be depressed. They never think that us men can have individual problems. What matters is only how you feel. I tell you, women always envy men's happiness.
I just saw my ex on a dating app and oh my God, the lies he put on it. When I first saw it, my heart dropped. I was like, oh shit. And then I was fine because it was just way too hilarious to not laugh at. Half of the pictures I took and then all of the prompts were a lie. Like he was like, I'm tall and rich. I'm like, you're neither of those. I just thought it was funny, but it's so nice to like get that behind me. Like, you know, like the things that you kind of are nervous for. Like, you're nervous for running into them in public, you're nervous for seeing them on a dating app or whatever, and it's like, that happened and that wasn't even bad, and I feel great. Anyway, it's just so funny. I don't know if it's gonna hit me later that I saw that and I'll be sad, but I don't think so. That's also a big red flag. If people are lying on the dating app, like, run. Like, they are just liars and they will not change. Run.
What bothers you is that he quickly moved on from you, making you feel like you weren't as special in his life as you thought you were. Remember, women always want to be special in a man's life, and they all want to see their exes worse off than when they left them, but seeing him doing better than you gave your heart a twist. Something I like about the Chad, a man who brings nothing to the table except his seed, is that these men never go down in flames when they leave a relationship. Don't get me wrong, everyone grieves in their own way, but crying to a woman when she leaves you never yields results. If she leaves you, go no contact immediately, disappear from her life as if the earth swallowed you. Hit the gym, and the next month, at least get on dating apps, even if it's just to chat with someone, and not lose the skill of talking to women. Believe me, she'll be keeping an eye on you, wanting to know what's become of your life. She'll search for you. This same girl talks about her ex, but she doesn't mention that she's also looking for a replacement because finding him on a dating app means you're there too. What a double standard women have. What hurt your ego is that he's already moved on, that his description, the one you noticed, will bring him a better woman than you. Brothers, just like the Chad, that's a low blow.
Men are losing their mind over a recent video that I made explaining how you leaving a good guy doesn't make you a bad person. Your spouse doesn't have to be abusive in order for your feelings of wanting to leave to be valid. There are dozens of reasons why marriages fall apart, and a lot of them have nothing to do with somebody being a bad person. Here are some examples. Financial problems, growing apart, communication issues, addiction, too much arguing, lack of emotional or physical intimacy, one spouse just isn't carrying their weight in the marriage. Maybe you married too young or for the wrong reasons. Opposing values or lack of shared interests. Or maybe you just live like platonic roommates. Those are all very common reasons for divorce. And it doesn't make you or your spouse a bad person.
Anxiety, uncertainty, and instability are always your best allies. A relationship ends in different ways. That's why I tell you, being a good man is no longer enough. You have to understand that many of these modern women, whether through social media, music, or their favorite actresses, or the purple hair movement, are constantly telling them to be bad, to go out with their bad boy, that men are there to please them. Whether you like it or not, all these things have an effect on a woman's mind. Whenever she's in a healthy relationship, she's always feeling like something's missing. As I've said, a woman is faithful to her emotions. That's why they never leave the Chad, because he puts them on an emotional roller coaster. One day he sweetens things up, the next day he salts it. He keeps them in this constant back and forth. Women are addicted to attention and drama. I always tell them, a good or bad emotion is still an emotion. Another thing, this is advice for men. Never lose your identity in a relationship. If you had friends, you dressed a certain way. That's how you won over that woman. When you change everything for her, you become what she's chewing on. You know what will happen. She'll get bored of you because you're no longer the guy she fell in love with. Stop thinking they're rational beings. These women are irrational thinkers. Remember, when they say something, they do the opposite.
Please give your baby your surname. You carried a baby for 9 months.
I had this conversation with a partner one time. He was my best friend since 8th grade, and we finally started dating when we were 20, and it was like, oh my gosh, at last we get to be together. When I told him I wanted to keep my last name and hyphenate our children's names, he said, why? And I said, oh, just because I like my last name. Like, I'd hyphenate if you wanted me to, but, you know, that's fine, whatever. And he was so heartbroken that I didn't want to change my name. And I said, why do you want me to change my name? And he's like, so we can have the same last name. And I said, oh, that's easy, just change yours. Like, I have a really cool last name. And he goes, but it's my father's name. And I said, yeah, me too. It's my father's name too. Like, I don't know. I just don't want to change it. Floored, shocked, so confused that I didn't want to change it. But he wouldn't change his either.
And that's why she's still single. You'll die with your father's surname that nobody wants. Brothers, do you know why she doesn't want that man's surname? Because he doesn't bring anything to the table. If he was a man with a lot to his name, believe me, she'd be crazy to have his surname and that of their children. But since she feels empowered, she's probably better off than the man, so she doesn't want to carry his surname. Imagine going to a gathering or a salon and they announce, for example, Mr. and Mrs. Smith. But then, how would it be, Mr. Smith and Mrs. whatever her name is? That's ridiculous. So when it comes to giving the surname to their child, mainly to the male child who carries on the family name, who will bear the woman's father's surname, when that's not his child, then that child isn't yours. Women want to strip away all the rights from the man, except for having to pay child support and inheriting your assets. Because in the event of your premature death, she'll want to prove that the child is yours, bearing your surname, to inherit all your money. DNA, like the surname, is sacred to a man. How do you tell a man that he doesn't want to have his surname? When there are people in history who paid their son-in-law to bear their surname for their children, when men created great works in the world or infrastructures to carry their surname, when it's a source of pride for a man to be called the Smith family. That's why this woman is alone, because I doubt that any man, unless he's a super simp, would accept something like that. The wall doesn't forgive. Welcome to The Wall. In today's video, we will see the new movement that feminists want to promote called the 4B movement. We will see where it originated, what it means, and why modern women want to promote this in the West. Before we begin, we want to thank you for being here. Your support means a lot to us. If you like what you see, we invite you to subscribe to the channel and give us a thumbs up. We would also love to hear your experiences in the comments. Your participation helps us grow and reach more people. Thank you for being part of our project. Let's get started.
The 4B movement, which if you don't know what that is, go look it up and come back.
Don't worry, I've got you. The 4B movement over in South Korea is starting to get a lot of attention all over the world and the internet, so let's talk about it today. Like, what is it, where did it come from, and why is it becoming so popular all of a sudden? And why does some people believe it is one of the main factors contributing to the fact that South Korea has like one of the lowest fertility rates in the entire world right now? So yeah, I would argue that it's pretty effective, and now it's starting to garner attention over here in the West with all the women who are also fed up with dating. There have been a lot of feminist movements happening in the past 10, 20 years or so over in South Korea, as there has been all over the world, of course. But a new subsect of women in these feminist movements are starting a movement called the 4B movement, also known as the 4 No's, which is a group of women saying no to dating, child rearing, marriage, and relations of any kind with men, if you get what I'm saying. And from my research, the 4B movement actually originated from a larger movement called Escape the Corset in South Korea, which is interestingly similar to some behaviors we've been seeing over here in the West. But it's no secret that in South Korea, the patriarchy is very strong, right? And they have very strict beauty standards and things you're supposed to adhere to. And a lot of women shared their stories about how they always felt like they had to have a certain amount of makeup every time they left the house. They had to look a certain way, act a certain way, fit in with society a certain way. They had to buy new clothes every season, and it was just exhausting, and they couldn't afford to keep up with it anymore. Does this sound familiar at all? But of course, naturally, they hit a breaking point, and they formed the Escape the Corset movement. And part of the protest was that women just started destroying makeup and clothes altogether. But a lot of women noticed, of course, things weren't getting better, and the issues stemmed way deeper than just physical appearance. Women started to notice things like South Korea ranks 99 out of all 146 countries for gender equality. That's really bad. And articles started coming out with surveys that were reporting that 65% of women in the whole country didn't even want kids, and 42% didn't want to get married at all. And 80% of the people said the reason for that was because domestic violence was so bad. And on top of the fact that things were getting so bad over there, the South Korean government wanted to shut down the Ministry of Gender Equality and Family, which was the place that is supposed to be supporting women. And they started removing terms like gender equality from textbooks. They also noted, of course, that the gender pay gap was huge over there, and there was wild amounts of discrimination from anyone who did choose to become a mother, so why would you want to? So essentially, the women got tired of the men and the government treating them terribly and ignoring them, so they decided to take matters into their own hands and said, we've had enough, we're done. And so far, it's working really well. So now all the other feminist movements in countries where, laws are being overturned, such as here, are seeing that and going, oh, wait, maybe that's not the worst idea. And I haven't decided if I'm personally at this point entirely or not yet, although I've kind of been doing it for the past 25 years anyways. But I do think it's a very interesting thought to consider.
Brothers, everyday things are getting worse and worse. It's like modern women don't understand how they're being used by groups that only want women to be lonely for greater consumption of fast fashion and beauty products. But you might wonder who gives the most voice to this movement against men. Well, it's those with the rainbow flag, those with purple hair, many of whom dislike men because they are attracted to women. They want to eliminate their competition by bringing them to their side. But it's not just that. Now, they're even trying to convince married women with stable homes to end their relationships, saying that everything men do is minimal, that they should leave them and join the movement because they live with a patriarchal oppressor. Did you hear? 65% don't want children, 42% don't want to get married. They say that by 2030, 45% of women will be single. Friends, start selling cat food.
Funniest thing about the 4B movement is it always comes from women that look more masculine than the men that they're talking about. And you know the exact women I'm talking about that have like the septum piercings, the different color hair, that literally are so far in their masculine role that the men weren't even looking in their direction in the first place. But the other funny part about it is it's another perfect example of how so many women are desperate to constantly compete with men. And it's just another way that these women are trying to one-up men, but the irony is that men have already checked out of marriage. They don't want kids. They find women insufferable because women have literally made it impossible to make them happy. So men are over it. There's passport bros for a reason, but yet here come the women with their 4B movement trying to make an impact of something that the men are already doing, which is something historically women have done with jobs, with everything around them, trying to be mechanics, trying to do all the manly jobs or make more money and be boss-ass babes. Everything is in competition with men. The same men that they claim not to give a shit about or that they don't need or yada, 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 that men are trash. But if there's so much trash, then why are you constantly competing with them or trying to one-up them or be better than them? And the other funny thing about it is that these women claim that they don't want male attention or male validation and they're so over men, but they create all of this drama and all of this chaos circulating around men, knowing damn well they're going to get attention from men. So make that make sense. It's honestly the hypocrisy for me. And these are the same women in comments like myself saying, pick me, pick me, pick me. But y'all have perpetuated drama so much to get male attention because negative attention is still attention. And if women aren't seeking attention from men outside of creating all of this drama, then why are they still on OnlyFans? Why are there still so many single mothers? Well, guess what? Because there's always going to be women that are going to put themselves out there and put themselves in jeopardizing situations because they want to perpetually live in victimhood. And what's the alternative? That you become a lesbian where the divorce rates are higher and the domestic violence rates are higher in lesbian couples? So make that make sense. And the fucked up part about it is it's just another example of how women will set the standard of what they want, and when the men follow through even further or use women for something or another, they can turn around and flip it and be in their victimhood and be like, oh my God, all men are trash. And it just perpetuates the idea that all men are the same and all men are gross and disgusting, even though the men are following the same standard that the women set in the first place. Okay, bye.
I totally agree. It's like that anti-abortion movement, my body, my choice. You see women in those movements, and you wonder who in their right mind would impregnate them. Modern women are going through the phases of a man's life because they've wanted to be like men. And when I say phases, every man knows he has to improve himself to get a good woman, from working to improving his physique, because a man is expected to bring something to the table. Now that men have moved on from women, women are going through their phase of having to pursue men. Those who can't get one enter a sort of denial because they don't have partners. Just look, it's always women now wanting to compete in everything we do, because this movement is just a variation of MGDOW or red pill, but for women, it's just another phase of men's lives. The problem is that men adapt faster than women. We play at their same level. They wanted to travel the world. We didn't renew our passports, bro. The girls are strong and independent. We're red pill. Single women are the happiest in the world. Men continue on their path with MGDOW. Now there's the 4B movement. But don't worry, we have the soft guy, the drizzle. It will keep appearing more because in their own game, men always win.
Imagine if men got on this app and said, oh yeah, we're going to participate in the 4Bs.
If us men were to sit here and create a movement where we wanted to no longer center women and we wanted to keep to ourselves and stay far away from them as possible, I think that they would absolutely love that. I think if every woman on the planet had the choice to be a lesbian, they would absolutely take it. I ain't trying to sound like no simp or nothing, but bro, us as men, we suck. We're their #1 unaliver by a mile, bro. Like, the vast majority of us are extremely dangerous to them. And they have every right to feel how they want to feel. And all they're saying is they just don't want to center us anymore. You know what I mean? If you really that guy, earn them. I mean, what's the problem? I mean, you ain't got no riz, you ain't got no game. I mean, are you a terrible person? If that's not you, then why are you getting so uptight about this movement? You want to change their minds, earn them back. They're just letting you know that us men ain't the only ones with all this power. They got the keys now. And without them, civilization doesn't move, bro. They're demanding their respect, deservingly so. So how about we give it to them, earn them back, so we can get this ish back on the roll. If not, they're out of here, buddy. And that's not on them, that's on us. Respectfully.
Personally, as a man, I don't support all movements. I don't have the belief that all women are bad, just like not all men are bad either. But absolving one group of responsibility and saying that only men need to change, brother, that's also wrong. Because we don't take to the streets with signs to assert our rights. The most we do is make a TikTok video talking about something that bothers us. If not, DNA tests would be mandatory. Women change laws in their favor, and they usually get their way, from divorces, child custody and support, pregnancy, to labor regulations that favor their collective. So, saying that all girls would be happy never having a man in their lives is a fallacy. No matter how much they want their Barbie world, men are the ones who keep the global economy ticking in all countries. And of course, if a woman's life is super important, so is a man's. I agree that some men need to make an effort to learn the game and not let themselves be manipulated, but some women should also change their attitudes toward their men, be kinder partners. There's no yin without yang. It's that simple. That's why on this channel, I tell men that the best investment will always be in yourself, because that will make you the best option for a feminine woman who respects you. Because as a man, you are also valuable.
Korean women have no idea what the 4B movement is, and we need to stop this misinformation.
Okay, so thank you to my friend Annie for making that video, because I am a Korean woman currently living in Korea and I have so much to say about this topic. So most of the 4B movement videos that I've seen on TikTok are made from foreigners, and I think Korean Americans or just Asian people living in the West, but not actually people living in Korea. So like I said, I live in Seoul. What I think is happening is the Western media likes to really pick up on these sensationalist, provocative topics and then makes it into an article, and then everyone on TikTok follows suit and makes videos about it. But let me tell you, I am 29, going to turn 30 this year, and literally all the conversations that I have with my friends around my age is about, oh my god, we're looking to get married, we need to find good partners, and we need to do this before it gets too late or we're just like aged out of their marriage market, you know? And I just made a YouTube video about this, Korea's population crisis, why nobody's getting married or having babies. But I also explained there are services in Korea like marriage matchmaking services where people go and you pay a broker and you submit all this information about yourself, your income, your assets, your family background, if you have any debt, like which university you went to, you submit all that information, and then they take that and then they will try to match you up with people who they think that you're on par with. So you know how you see in K-dramas how like the poor girl ends up marrying the richest CEO of Korea? Yeah, in reality that never happens. So people go to these marriage services and they're heavily used. There are literally so many in the country because everyone is using them. And so the 4B movement in Korea is a very, very small fraction of the whole Korean population in general. It's just the Western media likes to highlight that part and make it seem like it's the biggest issue in Korea, which it really Really, it's not. I can promise you that. Don't believe all those sensational articles written online all the time. Most people in Korea still like the other sex. We want to date, we want to find love, we want to get married. Those are like the big majority. And it's only the small group of extreme radical misandrists and extreme radical misogynists. They just seem like the loudest because the most attention goes to them. But yeah, I literally just dropped a YouTube video explaining about this whole thing, so go watch it, Anna Lee on YouTube.
See why I tell you women say one thing and do the opposite. That movement wants to change some things in Korea, but what they fight for there is totally different from the narrative that the pink-haired movement in the West wants to sell. Even though women write articles saying that single women are the happiest, at the end of the day, you can't leave behind your instincts. Like a man, no matter how much he wants to, he can't stop desiring a woman. The same thing happens with women. They want to push their agenda of loneliness by trying to hit men. But in the end, they're the ones who end up suffering, as we saw in videos of women regretting feminism. Women asking themselves why they're single, strong, and independent women who followed the corporate path regret their decision. Women can't escape their desire to have a family, and the idea of a dating agency is brilliant. Seeking potential partners, I bet it would start to be a business here, and women would be the first ones willing to pay the fee.
If you don't start to comply, we will start selling you on the market like cattle. We have all the guns. Don't forget that. Okay, I know that guys are inherently slower than women are. I mean, sorry, but it is what it is, okay? So I'm going to help you out here. What you don't comprehend is that women have been living in fear of men from birth. Okay, so these threats, this means absolutely nothing to me, okay? What's happening is you're angry because you're lonely. Things are not going the way you thought they would. You thought it would just be easy for you and you would coast through life and get everything you want. And that's not happening. That's not happening. And where you are is at a fork in the road, guys, okay? So you have two choices. A, you can continue down the path that you're on and behaving the way that you do, and then you will legit die alone, okay? Your biggest fear, you will die alone, okay? Nobody will be by your side. Or the option I recommend is to go to therapy, work on yourself, become better human beings, and then hope like hell a woman picks you one day, okay? Because the tables have turned. You don't understand that we do not need you anymore. We do not care. You serve very little purpose, okay? You're not providers. You're certainly not protectors. I mean, you're making threats against us right there. So you can't protect us. You're a threat to us. And you're not providing anything financially or otherwise. You're not even nice. You guys are at a fork in the road. Choose wisely, okay? May the odds forever be in your favor. Good luck. Good luck.
The female logic is somewhat twisted because if a man ends up alone for not having a woman, it's not the same as a woman not having a man. Because if there are more women than men, let's say there are 20% of single men, that equals 25% of single women, because there are more women than men, and there can't be more of one and less of the other, according to my math. Now, a piece of advice for every man. Don't go threatening a woman just because she doesn't want to be with you. That's stupid. It makes you look needy, and it can get you into legal trouble. Don't do that. I always advise working on yourself. Gym, good nutrition, getting your finances in order, learning skills to help you earn more money, finding a style of clothing that suits you, then hiring a photographer to take good photos of you in different styles of clothing. All of that, brothers, adds points. I assure you, it will bring you the woman you like because it makes you a high-value man. Now, this woman doesn't say that many women will also end up alone if they don't change, that men won't accept certain attitudes, that they're famous unrealistic standards. Well, men are over it. And here's another fact. There are more women than men in this country. A man can easily leave the country and marry a woman from another nationality. Brothers, if you do the work and invest in yourself, believe me, you'll never end up alone.
If I decided to get married, I would never take his last name. I would use my maiden name. So you'd use your father's name? No, I'm going to use my mother's maiden name. So your grandfather's name. Okay, got it.
Welcome to The Wall. In today's video, we'll be addressing a highly controversial topic that the one with the purple hair is trying to promote: the idea that children and wives shouldn't take the man's last name. Many argue that this is oppressive and patriarchal. Before we begin, we want to thank you for being here. Your support means a lot to us. If you enjoy what you see, we invite you to subscribe to the channel and give it a thumbs up. We'd also love to hear about your experiences in the comments. Your engagement helps us grow and reach more people. Thank you for being part of our project. Let's get started.
I would never take his last name. I would use my maiden name. So you'd use your father.
I've been writing about feminism for 20 years, and this still remains one of the top issues that gets people so upset, so pressed. They get like really riled up about this. The video I stitched is actually a really good response to this argument. The name you grew up with is your name. Like, that is part of your identity. It's yours. And I think people really need to ask, why are so many people jumping through hoops to pretend as if this is not sexist? It is incredibly sexist, like very explicitly so. Now, that doesn't mean you're a bad feminist, right? Like, we all make different negotiations in a patriarchal world. That's fine. But let's not pretend that this is not really explicitly sexist. And if it was no big deal, and if it's just tradition, if it's like you want one family name, why don't men do it?
Here's your response. What is the real benefit for the man in marriage? In almost 95% of divorces, the man loses everything, including custody of the children. The only benefit, at least on paper, is having your surname in the family. So when you talk about your family in a public place or legal document, it will be Mr. Castillo and Mrs. Lucero, for example. The children will also carry two last names because everything is sexist to not give any benefit to the man. Now, if you're a millionaire, I assure you they'll want your surname because at least it has a renowned name. That's why fewer and fewer men want to get married every day. I don't know what man would truly accept this because your father gives you your surname, which will be passed down through generations to his family. Why on earth would I continue passing on another man's surname in my family when he's already formed his own? Why does he still have influence on mine? Also, how will our children have two different surnames, especially the male child? Who will carry your surname to your grandchildren? Let me know in the comments what you think about this.
How do you feel about women taking men's last names when they get married?
No. We do not live in a patriarchy. I think that's extinct and it should not be a thing anymore. I definitely think it's the woman's choice.
Don't do it. You're gonna divorce him.
I feel like that's a personal.
Feels like it's going.
Feels like a.
Although I just talked to somebody yesterday about this who was like, my last name is really boring, and so I want to lose it.
I don't think it should be really like a norm.
I would keep mine.
Yeah.
I think, but like keep my husband's too.
In my culture, the women don't take men's last names. So yeah, it's definitely just a choice.
Will not marry a girl if she doesn't take my last name.
Would you hyphenate?
No. No. Hold on. I know. Here's it's the smallest sign of showing your child or children that you're not completely on the same page. You can't agree to just one name for your family. So instead, you're trying to do both parts instead of unifying as one name. Women get the fancy ring. They get most of the input on the marriage. I feel like the name is not a bad trade-off. Yeah. That's my thought.
What's the benefit for the man at all? She takes everything. Unless she's willing to sign a prenup before marriage to keep her surname, then we wouldn't have a problem at least gaining something. But she doesn't want to lose anything. So what do you gain? Also, why get married if you don't want to be part of this man's family? I understand that if you divorce, you can go back to your maiden name, but if you got married, it's to become one. So why don't you want to be Mrs. Castillo? That's how it would be presented, Mr. and Mrs. Castillo, for example. Every day, men's rights are diminishing. Men these days are afraid to say important things. Do you think someone like Trump, Obama, Ford, Rockefeller, those men who have achieved something in life, their wives wouldn't support them? Do you think they would accept their surname being put on the back burner? Women don't understand that a man's surname is his legacy. Once it's tarnished, what's left?
Did you guys know that in Islam, women are not required to take the names of their husbands? In the West and cultures around the world, women continue to take the last names of their husbands without really knowing where this tradition originates from. So the tradition of taking the husband's last name after marriage comes from a deeply patriarchal society where women would essentially become the husband's property after marriage. So husbands would have complete control over their wives legally, financially, and women wouldn't even have rights over their own children. Now, in Islam, women were given rights to ownership, inheritance, financial independence, individual sovereignty, all without marriage or ownership of a husband, and they were not considered as property. Today, many women around the world still practice the tradition of taking their husband's last name, but I find it interesting how many women don't know where this tradition originates from. And that includes myself. Up until 3 years ago, before I started studying Islam, I never really thought about it or knew where this tradition came from. And I find it so interesting and comical almost how Western women view Muslim women through like this lens of like they're victims and they're oppressed. Meanwhile, Muslim women in Islam were given rights almost 1,300 years before women in the West. So next time, before you view Muslim women as victims or oppressed, you should probably study the religion and learn about the rights that Islam gave to us long before you.
According to what she says, it's better not to take the man's surname. But you know what's practiced more in Islam. First, if a woman divorces, she must provide strong evidence for why she's divorcing. Second, there's only a 3-month maintenance period after which she's on her own. Third, the woman has rights to the children when they're young. Only at a certain age does the father also have custody rights. Fourth, and perhaps the most beautiful aspect of all, asset division doesn't exist in some Islamic countries. In others, it depends on jurisdiction, which usually isn't abusive towards the man, unlike in the West where they'll take everything they can and make you pay alimony. If what marriage in the West offered me was like this, along with a devout wife who rarely divorces because divorce rates are the lowest in the world, then I wouldn't mind if you didn't take my surname. But if you don't offer me these privileges, not even a prenup, then where do I gain in marrying you? Don't you think so, brothers?
I was watching a TikTok earlier and the lady, her stitches were turned off. If you happen to see it, please tag her. But she was basically putting a question out, why in 2023 are women still trying to take their husband's name? I'm going to come at this from a completely different angle. Where I live, actually, we're not allowed to change our names. Or if you did want to change your name, it's a lengthy, almost impossible process. When I got married, there was no one taking anyone's name. So the only one who has my husband's family name is my daughter. If I could, I would have taken his name. I would have taken anyone's name. Okay, maybe not anyone. And the reason I say this is because I have obviously my father's last name, but he has never been in my life, ever. And I remember in my teens, I was inquiring of how I can change my name to my mom's last name because, again, I have, at least growing up, really, I don't have a connection to that side of my family. Now, after, bumping into siblings and being able to meet more family randomly with no help to him, is how I was able to piece together kind of my dad's side. And ultimately, I remember clearly thinking that, I want to change my name. I don't know why I have this person's last name because I don't feel a connection. And then now when I got married, I remember the pastor was telling us that, listen, if you did want to take your husband's last name, you can go into the neighboring province, Ontario, and have just the ceremony at the court or whatever it is, and then come back and do everything here if you really did want to take his name. And I remember at that point very clearly being like, is this something I really want? I remember entertaining my husband was like, it's not that serious. And I was like, for you, ultimately now it is what it is. But, not that I feel left out, but I just feel like I don't match because my husband and my daughter, they both have the same last name. Like if we're traveling in our passports, I know it's not that serious, but, listen, do whatever it is that you want to do. But like I said, coming at this from a different perspective, that I would gladly have taken his name. And he has a beautiful last name too.
Absolutely, because it's not a family. It's two separate people living together. For that, it's better to just live together without getting married. What's the point of marrying if we won't even have the same surname, which doesn't allow us to be called Mr. and Mrs. whatever the surname is? Also, when my children with my surname are called and you show up with another name, what will you say? This is why I say men these days don't want to get married. When you take away all the privileges that make marriage beautiful for him, let's be honest, if I don't marry you, I'll still sleep with you, we'll still live together, we'll still have children, and I'll be more protected in case you come after my assets, and my children will have my surname. But she doesn't want to lose anything or sacrifice anything ever. That's why I say the only one who marries for love is the man. The woman marries for a lifestyle. She'll win at everything. In the end, you feel like a man that she was never really yours. She just sold you a dream, a moment in her presence, and that your marriage was a sham because you weren't even legally married in front of society. Let's watch the other video. I'll explain it better there.
One of my biggest regrets, and one that I'm still living with the implications of today, is taking my ex-husband's last name. Now, bear with me because it's not fun to talk about things not working out possibly. But with these traditions that we're carrying on into our lives, this one life that we have to live, we need to be so intentional and think about the origins and what they truly mean. What are we taking part of? Just because it's the norm doesn't mean that it's right or that it's something that we should do. And I wish I had that mentality when I was 19 and I got married, but I didn't. I was a young little girl in love. I took his last name. I felt like part of my identity was lost. I grieved it, but I did it anyway because it was right. It was what I was supposed to do in order to be a family. I had kids, 3 kids, gave them his last name because he needed to carry on his legacy or whatever. The problem was 15 years later when I wanted a divorce, and it hit me like a freight train that if I wanted to change my name back to my maiden name, my true identity, the only name that I really felt like was me, because guess what? It was me. I was now going to not have the same last name as my kids. Now, here's the kicker. When I talk, I hate saying that. I say that all the time. Here's the kicker. Whatever. I don't know why I say that. I only say that in videos, I think. Here's the thing. When I talk to women all the time about the possibility of keeping their maiden name, the first thing they always say to me is, well, no, I don't want to change. Like, I don't want to keep my maiden name because then I won't have the same last name as my kids. I think to myself, how conditioned are we? We don't even think of another possible scenario, like the kids take our last name. Heaven forbid, we give birth to these children, we grow them inside of us, we feed them off of our bodies. We put a lot into bringing these people into the world, but it's not even a part of a possibility for them to have our last name. I really hope that changes in the future. I feel like Gen Z is so much more intentional with these things, so I have hope for the future. But let me give you 2 possible scenarios that could go wrong if you choose to give up those rights and give your husband's name to your children. One possibility is that he gets remarried again. I was sitting in court. I hear the judge say the new Mrs. and his last name, and I realized, holy cow. Now, if I change my last name back to my maiden name, the kids are going to share a last name with her and him, and they will look like a family unit. Yeah, that's one possible scenario. Second possible scenario is that we all keep the same last name. So now he has 2 wives with the same last name. Even one's an ex, but we all are sharing the same last name. That's not very comfortable either. And then the third scenario is, and the only possible way to truly secure that you continue having the name as your kids, the same name as your kids, is to give them your last name from the beginning. And if your husband wants to be a part of that family unit, and it's really important to him to share the same last name, then he can take your last name. I know, so out in left field, right? Crazy. What is she thinking? But think about where these traditions are stemming from and why not. And on the other side, I don't believe you have to share the same last name to be a family unit. I currently have my maiden name. I'm married to a man who has his maiden name, and the kids have their dad's last name. We're a happy family.
This is the problem with women when they become feminists. At first, she said she married for love, took her husband's surname, but when she got divorced, she went back to her maiden name, developed hatred towards her ex-husband. She envies that her 3 children, whom her husband supported all their lives, carry his surname, and she doesn't share it with her maiden name because they are the legacy of that man who will surely leave them a better inheritance than her. In a world where only the woman knows the child is hers, where she gets offended if the man asks for a DNA test, they also want the children he has to support not to have his surname but hers. Of course, you will have the obligation to support them for 18 years, while she only had to do it for 9 months. But you, 18 years. You'll have the burden but not the authority. And we all know that responsibility without authority is simply slavery. This is the advice of a divorced woman who in another video tried to screw her ex-husband in a divorce. Because of things like this, I say Western women have become masculine. I bet if you put her surname instead of yours and make a will stating that only those who share your surname, including the wife, will receive the inheritance, she would scream bloody murder and even try to change it because she doesn't want to lose in anything. When before, the first child carrying the father's name and surname was a blessing. Now they want to take that right away from the man. Brothers, Where is the benefit of getting married? We've reached the end of the video, but before we go, the questions are for you. What do you think about women not taking their husband's surname? Would you be okay with getting married and your family having 2 last names instead of yours? If you enjoyed the video, make sure to give it a thumbs up, subscribe to the channel, and hit the notification bell. Your support means the world to us and motivates us to create more content. Stay tuned for the next exciting video from the wall.